Here at Stories of Hope, Kerry Atherton's mission is to give people a platform to share their stories of hope with the world. We also want to provide the same chance to businesses that are passionate about mental health and want to support the podcast. If you'd like to partner with Stories of Hope and advertise your services on this podcast, send a message to kerry@empowerlifesolutions.com.au with your details. Now, on with the episode. In times of trauma and adversity, we must create space for connection by sharing a story of hope. Welcome to Stories of Hope Worldwide, hosted by Kerry Atherton. This podcast shares inspiring stories of individuals who have faced significant challenges and emerged stronger, offering hope and resilience to listeners all over the world. Join Kerry, the founder of Stories of Hope, every week to hear these remarkable journeys and find strength to overcome your adversity. Now, let's listen in to this week's conversation.
Welcome to another episode of Stories of Hope Worldwide. I'm Kerry Atherton and I'm your host. And today's guest is Steve Hodgson. Steve is a coach and a mental health first aid trainer, among many other things, inspiring people to live their best life and overcome hard times. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, Kerry. Thank you for the opportunity. I always love chatting about all things mental health and struggle, but more hope and recovery, as I know that's what you love talking about as well.
Absolutely. We've got a lot in common, both mental health first aid trainers.
Yep, we are.
And we're going to be talking about a really important topic today, which I have also been through, but we're hearing your story, and that is burnout. And I feel like we're living in a society that's a burnout society at the moment. And I just know that this story is going to resonate with so many people because every second person that I'm talking to at the moment is talking about burnout.
I think the statistics at the moment, around 80% of Australians at the moment are experiencing some level of burnout. So as you say, Kerry, it's going to resonate with people. It's very relevant. And just like you're having conversations, the conversations I'm having with people are very much around burnout. And then that obviously leads to a lot of other issues from a mental health perspective, a physical health perspective, emotional, spiritual health. It's very holistic.
Oh, and you took the word right out of my mouth right then, holistic. That's right. It does affect so many areas of our life, doesn't it? My 15-year-old granddaughter, and she said this a year ago, said that she feels like time is going so fast. And when kids say that, it really just hits you hard because I don't know about you. I'm a bit older than you, Steve, but when I was a kid, the time just seemed to go forever. And now thanks to social media, which has some benefits, but it really just zaps our time so much, doesn't it? Where you can be on the phone and just scrolling through something and next thing you look at the clock and an hour's gone by.
I think the key thing these days is the word presence, having presence in situations rather than, going to a party and then thinking about what you're doing the next morning, right? Like we're always on to the next thing because for us as human beings, what we're doing is we kind of go, oh, here's a goal. And before we get to that goal, we've already set another goal. So by the time we receive or we achieve a goal, we don't celebrate it because we feel like we're failing because we haven't reached that next goal.
That's so true. And I was reading something once. I'll try and get the story right, but she was just describing life as being like being on a train and you're going to different destinations and arriving at different stations. And it's like, unless you can learn to be grateful at the destination that you're at, you'll always spend your life, thinking and wishing for something greater and something different. And you'll never, ever experience the joy of just being in that moment or being at that destination. So basically, we're always waiting for something in life, but to wait well is something that's a really learned art. But I know your journey's really brought you to that point. So let's go back to before the burnout even happened. And one question that I'd like to ask you, because so many people really get to this midlife and struggle and think, wow, I've been doing something that I don't enjoy. I've never enjoyed it. And when people come to me for support with counselling, and I hear other psychologists talk about this, the golden question that they go back to for somebody that's in that age bracket where they've thought, oh, what's the meaning of life? What was your dreams when you were a kid?
The dreams for me as a kid, you always go through that normal, I'm going to be a police officer, I'm going to be a fireman, those kind of things, right?
Yeah.
But I think for me, from a very early age, my dad is very generous. My mum is my greatest teacher. She is just a beautiful, beautiful human being. She's a virtues facilitator and a life coach. She worked 32 years with disability services. So for me, from a very young age, it was always going to be something of service, something that I was having an impact on people's lives.
Wow. That's great to have that insight as a young person, isn't it?
I suppose for me, I always get the most energy, and I probably am more aware of it now through the journey that I've been through. But I think, the awareness of, like, I feel good when I'm doing something for someone. So if I have a day where I'm not feeling quite right, if I do something for someone, it makes me feel good.
Oh, I know. I definitely get that feeling. And it's interesting because in the beginning of my book, I talk about I never wanted to be a counsellor. I actually wanted to be a jazz musician and an actress,
Yeah.
but life chose that path for me. And now I would never have anything different because, as you say, the joy of being able to stand shoulder to shoulder and alongside another human and help just be a small part in the difference in their life. There's just a joy in that that can't really be found anywhere else. So, Steve, you wanted to go into service for other people and caring for other people. And I know you had a very long stint in real estate. Did you get straight into that as a young person, or was there something that you were working in before you led to that career?
Yep. Like most people do, I started in McDonald's for a couple of years. Family was very, very heavily in McDonald's. So I kind of got my start before most people at a normal age would. So I was helping out there. And then I went and worked at Big W, so department store. And then I got a really good opportunity locally to work in a video store. And then about a week before I graduated, year 12, I got an opportunity to become a manager of one of the video stores, and then went in for a little bit for about 6 months running a clothes store. And then I came upon an opportunity to be a cadet with Ray White and jump into the real estate industry as a 19-year-old.
Great. And when you jumped into the real estate agency, what were you wanting to achieve, or what was the goal for you in helping people find their home?
Well, I suppose we had some family friends, and from mum and dad selling properties and seeing other properties being sold, I loved that feeling of being able to help someone with, you know, their transition in life. So for me, I looked up to these family friends as mentors. And when I stepped into property management, about 18 months later, I got an opportunity to come back into the local area in sales with a family friend. So these family friends that I looked up to, I actually ended up working with both of them.
What a great opportunity. So, can you just take us then, through the career? And I know that it ultimately led to a big burnout and breakdown. Talk to us about the signs, if you saw them happening at the time or now in hindsight. But can you just share a bit about that journey with us?
Yeah. When I started real estate and then I met my wife, we had two kids. She already had three kids. So we had five kids. So it was, a busy life being a business owner, starting a new business. We were heavily involved in the community for many years. We always were just trying to do as much as we could as business owners, but also as parents. We still like to travel and go on holidays. And then you've got to exercise and you've got to go to the gym and you've got to be your healthy self, right? So there's all these pressures that get put on you. And over time, I think it just piled up. Being a principal, being a father, being a husband, being a community leader, being probably very much a yes man. So people would say, oh, will you sponsor this? Yes. Can you do this? Yes. Can you speak at this event? Yes. Can you take on my property? Yes. Right. And it was yes, 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 yes. And, I kind of got to 2018. So I'd been in the industry 15 years. I remember sitting on the couch. It was February 2018. And I'd noticed probably for a little while that things like I was forgetting appointments. People would ring me and say, "Oh, are you coming round?" And this is not like me, right? Like I've got a great memory. My boys always say to me, "Oh God, you've got the best memory ever," right? I'll run into someone and I'll say, "Oh yeah, you bought that property at this property,
Yeah.
at this date with this price." So those kind of things. But I just sat there and I felt like I was completely drained. Like when you have a robot or something like that and it just runs out of battery. I just sat there and I was just staring and I felt empty, absolutely empty.
Right.
And I went, I've got to go to the doctor. So I booked a doctor's appointment and he went through, got my blood test, did my blood pressure, everything, and basically came back other than a few deficiencies in maybe a little bit of vitamin D, maybe my cholesterol might have been a little bit high. But other than that, he's like, you're fine. So I struggled on for another 6 months. And then at that point, they ended up trying to put me on antidepressants, which actually made me worse. They made me do a heart test because I was having points where I was just couldn't breathe. I was sweating. I was really, really struggling. So the heart test came back. Perfect. Fine. No problems. Oh, well, I'll just toughen up. I'll just keep going. So it took me about 3 years of kind of moving in and out of real estate, kind of getting sucked back in because I thought, hey, these people need me, and I need them,
Yeah. Mm.
And it wasn't until late 2021 where I finally went, I've got to get out of this industry. And I still have ownership in it today, but it's not, I have no active role in the business at all.
Wow, what a journey. Through that time, you mentioned that you went on antidepressants. Did you feel depressed? Did you feel anxious? And did you feel stressed?
100%. 100%. I just felt fight or flight was just out of control. Over the 3 years between 2018 and 2021, it was probably about 2019, I got referred to a doctor and he did some tests on me. And he actually said, can I actually publish these results? Because he did my cortisol results and my cortisol was like flatlined. He said, I've never seen cortisol like this.
Low.
It was just, it was dead. It
Yeah.
had just completely burnt out.
Yeah.
So I went through and, was very much looking at holistic stuff. But back to the antidepressants, when I was put on those, because I think a lot of the time GPs can just be like, oh, you're not feeling right. Here, take some happy pills, take some antidepressants. And about 6 or 7 weeks of taking them, I felt worse. I was really, really struggling. So it wasn't until late 2021 where I actually got in to see a psychiatrist. And the psychiatrist said, no wonder you haven't, like those pills back then didn't help you. They were treating the wrong chemical in the brain. So he put me on a different type of antidepressants and they have been absolutely game changers in life. Not that I wanted to, right? So as a male, I was like, oh, I don't want medication. I don't want to be defined. I don't want to be labeled. But, at the end of the day, I think whatever we get diagnosed with or anything like that, it's not a label. It's actually a superpower, right? We've got to work out how do we work with that superpower? And if we need, a little bit of natural therapy, if we need a little bit of prescription or anything to help us be the best person we can, then that's fine. We're all very unique human beings. It's very much about what's our superpower? Okay, cool. How do I work with that?
And that's great that you found medication that worked for you. I've been doing some work closely with a professor of the Mind and Brain Hub up here on the Sunshine Coast, and he actually founded Australia's first national trauma centre. And he was sharing some statistics with me the other day that 26% of people with depression and anxiety respond to medication, 25% respond to placebo, and that's the first lot of medication. If that doesn't work, then it goes down to 18% of people responding. And sometimes it takes people 3 times to actually get the right medication. So I think the message is to stick with the process, because a lot of people, when they're put on medication, if it doesn't work the first time, they become very disillusioned with the process, and especially guys. And they're like, this hasn't helped me and I'm giving up on this, and they lose hope.
Yep.
But I think it's, as you said, it's really important to keep going with the process, keep trying to find what works.
Yeah, 100%.
Eventually, if we find what we look for, don't we? And if you keep searching, you'll find what's right for you.
Yeah. And even today, I'm still searching for, like I have a Whoop band, which has been a game changer over the last couple of years. It does all my biometrics,
Yep.
tells me my sleep, tells me when I can push a little bit more. So it's been really helping me because I was diagnosed with chronic fatigue, obviously anxiety and depression. So I still have to manage my symptoms because I hit a level of burnout that I'm still trying to get myself back to 100%. And I think what you said there, keep searching, right? Keep searching. And for anyone listening to this as well, if you go and see a doctor and you're not happy with their opinion, get a second opinion. We know our bodies. If we tune into our bodies and we become aware of ourselves, we know ourselves better than anyone else. As you do, Kerry, I help a lot of people go through this process. And, there's some really key tips. I'm helping a gentleman at the moment, and he's been really, really struggling. And I said to him, "What, can I ask, what are you taking?" Told me what he's taking, and I said, "It may actually not be the medication for you." And I'm not a medical expert, neither are you, Kerry. But I said something doesn't seem right. So I said, "I think you need to. Have you seen a psychiatrist?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Well, get into a psychiatrist." He actually got an appointment a fair way away from where he lived, but it was important to get to it. He got there. He rang me and he said, "Actually, my doctor said, yeah, the antidepressants that I was on are not the right ones. And it actually may not be antidepressants that I might have. I might have something else." So he's on a different protocol now. They're monitoring him over the next month. But one of the key things I said to him is journal. I want you, and I sent him a journal and I said, "I want you to write down how you feel. What are the thoughts that go through your head? Is it cycles? Work out different cycles. Okay, I'm happy at this point. I'm not happy at this point. Understand yourself more." And I said, also, when you go to the psychiatrist or you go to your GP or you go to your psychologist, you can actually hand over the journal and say, "Hey, these are my thoughts." And they will actually be able to get a better understanding, especially from a GP perspective. Because if you go into a GP, they want to get you in there and out of there as quick as possible.
Yeah. And they're not trained mental health specialists
They're
either.
not.
All they've got is the information that the clients give them in that limited time that people have in a visit. So, yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
These are all things we cover in mental health first aid training, aren't they? We talk about anxiety disorder, depressive disorder, substance abuse disorder. And that is something that a lot of people that talk to me about struggling with depression and anxiety, and especially guys, and it's in the statistics that men have a bigger problem with substance abuse disorder, they don't realise that alcohol's a depressant. And so many blokes think, well, I'll just have a few drinks, and probably too many drinks to try and drown the sorrows, and many women too. More and more women I know are turning to alcohol to cope with stress of life, but alcohol being a depressant, the problems don't go away. They're still there and they're just magnified once the effect of the alcohol wears off. So,
Yeah, 100%. And I found that as well. That's something, raising the awareness of myself through my journey is that, just a couple of drinks after work, just to take the edge off,
yeah.
just to calm myself. But what I would feel is worse the next morning, right? So I actually got to a point when I became a mental health first aid instructor. I sat there and went, "Oh," we went through the substance use section. And then obviously becoming an instructor, I was like, "Oh, okay." So I took 6 months off alcohol and it absolutely completely changed my relationship with alcohol. So now I enjoy a social wine or a rum and coke from time to time socially, but it is nowhere near. And I was never a big drinker, but it would just be one or two. And then probably at some points, some nights might have gone from 1 to 2 to 2 to 3 to 3 to 4 to 4 to 5, right?
Yeah.
And the thing I found as well is when I stopped drinking for 6 months, I lost 11 kilos.
Wow, yeah.
So losing 11 kilos, and I thought this is really interesting. And what I looked into it is when you drink alcohol at night, say you have 2 or 3, then you actually eat more, right? You'll feel like that after dinner
Right.
snack or
Yeah.
that late night snack. So you're actually consuming more calories in the alcohol, but then that's actually making you feel like you need to eat more later on in that night.
Yeah, and when people overindulge in alcohol, the decision-making process is very impaired because that part of the brain starts to go to sleep.
Yes.
That sense of right and wrong, or what I would and wouldn't do, or the positive decision from the negative one, that judgment's just kind of goes. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Steve, and it's good information out there for anyone that's listening.
As you hear this story, what Kerry's discussing might be resonating strongly with you. Perhaps you've experienced something similar yourself and are looking for support. Kerry Atherton is an experienced counsellor and wellbeing coach and has private sessions available if you or someone you know needs some help. You don't have to deal with trauma, addiction, PTSD and abuse alone. If you'd like to talk about today's episode or your own experiences, book a session with Kerry at empowerlifesolutions.com.au or check the link in the show notes and embrace a future filled with hope. Now back to the episode.
When you came to that point of your rock bottom, you talked about being a yes man. And something that I really want to address in this whole topic is identity in performance and in the work role. And because somebody very, very close to me had a very, very bad burnout and had to leave their job and give up everything. And when we were having the discussion about that, and I said, I really feel like you've got to give up this job. They were in tears and they said, if I give up my job, I won't know who I am. And it really hit me like a ton of bricks that a grown man had that perception. And what's the first question that everybody out there in the world says, when they meet each other, or especially with guys, or what do you do?
100%.
Yeah. So can you talk to me about your identity in the work that you did and how that was impeded on once you had the breakdown?
Yeah. It was really hard because when you've been doing it for so long and that's your daily life, you actually attach your label or your title to your identity.
Yep.
And for me, that's why for 3 years I struggled in and out of real estate, because there was that kind of addiction, I suppose, to the chase and helping people and getting that sale or getting a little bit more for the seller than they wanted, and helping a young first home buyer family get in. All these different things. I loved it. I craved it. But I was kind of forced into this part where I was like a stay-at-home dad, to a certain point. And I remember sitting there and I was angry. I was resentful because I was like, it's been taken away from me. The business has been taken away from me. My role has been taken away from me. And it was one point I sat there and I went, actually, how many dads get to spend time, right, with their kids in their teenage years, right? And from that point, I've lived a life of gratitude. It doesn't mean I haven't had my struggles, but I can tell you at the end of 2021, because as I used to try and get out, people would ring me because I'd had my same phone number. People would ring me and say, oh, Steve, we want you to come out and sell our house. And I'd go, okay, yep. All right, I'll just do one more, right? Then it just got sucked in. And then I'd do an open home and I'd do a marketing campaign on that. And then I'd pick up other people that wanted to list and sell. And it was just this treadmill that I just couldn't get off until one day I went, no, this is just not for me. And I said, the phone rang through a really good client. And the client said to me, oh, Steve, can you come out? We want to sell our home with you. And I said, look, I actually don't list and sell anymore, but my wife can come out and, see you. And they went, oh, that's fine. Yeah, no problem at all. Just get her to give us a call. And this weight on my shoulders, this weight I'd been carrying just melted away. And I was like, well, that was easy. What I thought is people needed me, but that was the ego. An ego and identity is very similar. So it was an interesting journey. It was definitely an interesting journey. But I probably got to about 2022 after I'd made that decision and I'd stepped back completely. In 2022, probably about September, I think, I remember sitting there and going, I want to feel like me. I don't feel like me. I've grown up, and I've gone through these roles. I've become a dad. I've become a husband. I've become a community leader. I've become a friend, all these things. But I've kind of been molded into someone, like I kind of didn't know who I was, right? So I went through this identity crisis a little bit to go, well, what's my next step? What do I do? And through that process as well, there was an insurance process. So going through income protection insurance and those kind of things that I had, which, luckily I had those policies in place, which helped me through that period. But it was definitely a really, really tough time, Kerry. And from the men and the women that I speak to, but especially men in midlife that I deal with, if they get made redundant, from a job that they've been in for 10, 15, 20 years,
Oh, I know. Yeah.
they think, well, what am I now?
Yeah. And it's really sad, isn't it?
Very sad.
Yeah.
Very sad.
How did you cope with your role as a husband, giving up
I
the job? What was your perception that you thought your wife would have of you?
Yeah. See, I was always probably the top real estate agent and, the business owner, and Trace and I worked together in the business, but it was really hard because I was obviously bringing in and contributing a lot, and then I wasn't. So it kind of really took a lot of self-worth away from me and made me feel like I wasn't contributing, which was really hard. Over the years, I found that there's financial contribution, but there's also household contribution. So anyone listening to this, watching this, whether you're a stay-at-home dad or a stay-at-home mum, hats off to you. Because for me, I got to see the other side. So,
Yeah.
being our kids growing up, being little, they're 16 and 18 now, but I saw the impact that my career would have had on my wife, and then I was experiencing the other side. So I was having all the feelings that she would have been having many years ago. So it was really, really hard. And it's hard as well because it put a lot of pressure on Trace, put a lot of pressure on our relationship. And, it kind of changed our paths, which was disappointing. But in saying that, I wouldn't have got through that period if it wasn't for my family and my friends. And I think one of the key things I would say, and you kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, is environment, right? Your environment is not just the environment where you live or where you holiday. Your environment is, where do you go? Who do you hang around with? You know, if you've got an alcohol addiction or a drug addiction, if you hang around environments that are going to help that and promote that, you're not going to change, right? Like
Yeah.
I always say, on a Friday afternoon, Kerry, I drive past the pubs and you see all the tradies out there, and there's no problems with having a drink after a hot day, especially here in Queensland, right? But if that's just an everyday thing and you're hanging out in that environment, and I've had a couple of people that have actually said to me, "Oh, I'm not feeling quite right," and I say to them, "What do you do?" And they take me through things, and I say, well, instead of going to the pub, what about go to the gym?
Yeah,
What about
exactly.
you go to the gym, go and do some wellness and
Healthy
well-being?
strategies, yeah.
Yep. And then what happens then? I used to run for many years in the runners group, local runners group, and I met so many people that got out of addiction, changed their life, changed their relationships, changed their whole identity just by getting focused and taking on running, because it put you in an environment of people that wanted to be better, that wanted to grow. And that's such a really important part of the environment that you're in. The environment you're in has got to support the person, not only who you are, but who you actually want to be.
Yeah, that's great. I love that, Steve. Steve, how old are you? Do you mind if I ask?
I'm 41.
And, hats off to you, because to be able to come to this recognisation at 41 with still so much of your life ahead and your relationship. I talk to so many guys that are older that have been caught up in workaholism their whole life. And I speak to the wives, and they don't come to this realisation till it's probably too late, and their marriages have been destroyed.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, the pressure that was put on my relationship, my wife and I are separated, which has been disappointing. We're still very amicable and we still very get on. There's a great friendship there, but it does put on, someone going through a mental health or an addiction, disorder.
Yeah,
Like, it's hard for the person going through it, and you've been there as well, Kerry, right? But
exactly.
I think it's almost harder for the family members or the people closest to you, because they don't know what to do. And then they're trying to understand it themselves.
Oh, absolutely. And the workaholic is so caught up in the doing and the saying yes, and it's like a hamster on a hamster wheel, isn't it? And it's going so fast, they just literally don't know how to get off, or standing trying to juggle 6 balls in the air, and the pressure that you talked about before, and the fear of, "What if I let one of these balls drop? I just can't."
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're so caught up in that, and it's almost like an addiction. Well, workaholism is an addiction to work, or whether it's approval addiction or addiction to the closing the sale. Like, there's so many things wrapped up in that, isn't there? But they're so caught up in that that they don't realise what the people around them might be going through.
And I think one of the key things is probably back around when I hit that rock bottom burnout in 2018. I was listening to an episode on the Tim Ferriss podcast interview. And what really sat for me was they said, if you're going to say yes to something, ask what you're saying no to. And
Oh,
that really
love that.
changed my mindset, right? Because if you're just yes, 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 if you start actually saying, okay, if I say yes to that event, what am I saying no to? Oh, then I can't go to my kid's sport, or I can't go to dinner, or I can't go to a family event, right? And then you start thinking, well, actually, I want to go to the family event. But we feel guilty because by when we say no, we think we let other people down. But really, most people actually don't care when you say no. And it's like when I said, I don't list and sell anymore,
Yeah,
take this pressure off. Once
yeah.
I started saying no a lot more,
Freedom.
it was freedom. It was quite
Yeah.
empowering. So for me now, Kerry, I say if it's not a fuck yes, it's a fuck no.
Yeah.
Right? Like
Yeah.
that is for me. And I
All
only
of
do
that
things
is.
now that
Yeah.
I wanted, that bring me joy, that I get excited to do. And if I don't want to do it, I don't do it. I say no.
I love that. Yeah, that's great. Steve, what was your worst day?
Oh, I think my worst day was when COVID hit, because obviously I was still in and out, high pressure, high stress from a business perspective, not knowing what COVID was happening. There was a 6 or 7 week period there where my wife was just in the business working. Everything was triggering for me. I couldn't manage my emotions. I remember sitting on the I think, we'd had an argument or something like that, and I just couldn't manage my emotions. I didn't know. It was like an out of body experience, but I remember just sliding down the kitchen cupboards in the kitchen and just crying. And I just had so much, it was like electricity running through me, but I couldn't manage my emotions. And I just went, oh, this is no good. I was probably 60 to 70 kilos overweight. I would eat, I was a binge eater probably because of my emotions, right? So, we talk about addiction. For me, I was an emotional eater.
You ate your
Uh,
feelings.
I ate my feelings, right? Some people drink their feelings, some
Yeah.
people eat their feelings, some people go and have sex and do all
Yeah.
these other things to, I suppose, mask. But for me, I just sat there. And it was interesting I think it was within the next few days after that point, I took my boys to Cold Rock for ice cream. And one of my past clients, I saw her and I said, oh, wow, you look fantastic. And she said, oh, thank you. So I messaged her that night and I said, wow, you look fantastic. And she said, oh, actually, I had the gastric sleeve. And I went, oh. So I asked her a few questions around that. And I went and researched the good, bad, and the ugly. And 3 months later, I had the gastric sleeve done and lost about 60 kilos. And I'm over 5 years, over 5 years now. I've probably put about 10 kilos on, but it absolutely changed my life. But once again, as a male and, as a human being, a lot of the time it's like, oh, surgery, weight loss surgery, that's the easy way out. But for me, I was always an active person. I was always someone that was running or doing something active. And I just couldn't shift the weight and keep it off, right? So I could shift the weight, but then it would come back on and a bit more. So that was an absolute game changer for me and really took me out of that really, really dark hole. So 2018, I hit burnout, but 2020, I was still in that 3 years of just trying to work out who I was,
Yeah.
what I was going to do, and just feeling like an absolute failure.
Thank you for sharing that, Steve. And I like to ask that question at times because A lot of people listening to my podcast are going through their worst day and they feel like nobody else in the world understands and they don't know how to reach out. People will really resonate with what you've just expressed there, and also the fact that you found you found some self-awareness to make some decisions to come out the other side. So what was your best day?
My best day. You know what? Every day these days is my best day, right? Like
See it on your face. So not every post I
I
thought you just bring joy.
I I just love I do a lot of different things. Someone said to me yesterday, "What do you do?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm a mental health first aid instructor, I'm a podcaster, I'm renovating a house, focused on wellness and well-being. I'm just about to head overseas to a wellness conference and a men's retreat over in Italy." Like I've got so many things happening, and yes, real estate took so much away from me, but it also gave me the opportunity and gave me the privilege to actually be able to have this time that I've been able to have in recent years without the pressure. But, you know, I suppose the polarity to that is the pressure has been worn by the business and my wife. So that's been really, really tough. But my best day, I've I just did it in this year in May. My son turned 18 in April, and I took him away for the whole month, and we just had the absolute best time. We went through 7 or 8 countries
Oh, love that.
in Europe. We went to the FA Cup final with my uncle, or both my uncles. We went and saw Barcelona versus Real Madrid in Barcelona. We went to the Champions League final. We just had an absolutely incredible trip. And it was just one of those trips where we can give our kids and we can give people gifts, but give people time, give them your presence, give them intentional time, right? Like you talked about earlier around like, kids now are going, time's flying past,
Yeah.
right? Intentional time, intentional time. That's what we all need.
Yeah, so that's great. And so your darkest time really has springboarded you into your greatest purpose ever, hasn't it?
Yeah, I was having this conversation with a guest yesterday, and it's interesting. You know, sometimes we don't know what we want,
Mm,
but once we start working out what we don't want, what we want actually comes to us.
yeah, very wise. Steve, so today, you've talked about what you do and what are your self-care strategies? I know obviously exercise is one of them. What else do you do for the other men out there that might be listening who are in the recovery process from burnout, stress, marriage breakdown, whatever it might be?
I think the key thing is to listen to yourself and be kind to yourself. If there's a day where you don't feel like you can do as much, that's okay. You know, the more aware you become of yourself, you'll actually be able to say, is this my brain telling me that I need to not get out of bed? Or is it because I actually need the rest? And things like Whoop bands, Samsung watches, Apple watches, those kind of things. There's lots on the market now that can help you with that. But it's about routine as well. Like I found routine for me is really, really crucial. So about 18 months to almost 2 years ago, actually, I was going to a gym, a Total Fusion gym here at Springfield, and it had a wellness and well-being area, and I'd been doing it for about 6 months. And then I thought I might just go and do one class, because my fatigue, I had to manage it. So I went and did one cycle class. And for the last 2 years now, I have been doing cycle class 2 to 3, sometimes 4 times a week.
Oh,
And
no.
I just love it because I used to run and I loved running, but running isn't as supported. So if you're really struggling some days, running is no good. Whereas if you're on a bike, like sometimes I'll go into a session and I'll still go. I'm not feeling 100%, but I'll just go there and I'll just, not go as quick or don't go as hard. But then there'll be other days where I'll be like, feel like I'm top of the world and I'll go and push myself a little bit more. So that's been really amazing. And once again, put me in an environment with other people that want to work on their health and fitness, have some banter, have a joke. And it just created this, I suppose, your vibe attracts your tribe. So some of the people at Total Fusion there and the community that I've kind of involved myself in has changed my life the last couple of years as well.
Oh, I love that. And I was just about to talk about the wonderful life-saving healing power of connection.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
We're living in a lonely society. Loneliness is becoming more and more paramount, and actually getting out there and connecting is a step that we actually purposely have to take, isn't it? But on the other side of that is just so much joy and such, like you said, a healing and healthy path to a better life when we can connect with other people.
Yeah, and I think that's the key thing is as well as human connection. You know, we are the most connected we've ever been in society technologically. Anyone around the world we can kind of contact, we can call, we can connect with today, right? We can text message. But I think sometimes we're assuming or presuming a lot of things now. So my mum even said this the other day. She said, you know, when people used to go on holidays 20 years ago and then they'd go, oh, come round for dinner and we'll show you our photo albums, right? Now we don't have that intentional connection, right? Because we go, oh, yeah, I saw the photos on Facebook. Yeah, it looked good. Right? Like we've lost a lot of good things that we used to have. And I think we should bring some of those things back because it wasn't just showing the photos. It was actually getting back from a holiday or getting back from an experience and sharing that with someone and then sharing that joy, right? And probably being very much grateful for the time because sometimes you can come back from a holiday and be like, oh, I'm burnt out and I've just absolutely jam-packed my holiday. But when sometimes you get back into work and you lose the reflection on how good that holiday was, and it spurs you on to book your next one.
So true. And while you were talking about that, I was just thinking on something else too that relates to connection and the lack of connection. I mean, even that couple of weeks ago when the phone company went down and there was certain people that couldn't call 000. Now they're talking about maybe bringing back the old phone, the landline. But the thing was with the landline that you could pick it up and you could talk to somebody on the other end of the phone because we are so reliant now on communication with social technology. And with that, though, it's so easy to miss messages, to miss people, to miss phone calls or think, oh, I'll just get back to that later. But you're probably like me because we're both real connectors, but I'm always on the lookout for the person that's quieter on social media. And when they've been absent, you know, if they've been somebody that's regularly posted or when they're absent and they seem quiet, I actually reach out and send a message and I say, hey, I've just noticed you're a bit quiet lately on social media. I'm just checking in. Are you okay? And most of the time they've been going through something.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I do the exact same thing.
I knew you would.
I do the exact same thing because I always say, and for anyone listening as well to this episode, if you ever think of someone, if anyone's name or anything ever comes into your head, text them, bring them, go and knock on their door and check in on them because there is a reason that the universe has sent that name into your head. And most of the time you'll find if you reach out to that person, it'll make their day. It'll actually be the call that they needed that day.
Yeah, and it's really part of the mental health first aid training that we both do, isn't it? Looking for those signs, and I'm talking about this now because mental health is something that you and I are both so passionate about. It's looking for those little signs that someone might not be okay. And by doing a mental health first aid course, you actually learn how to become aware of those signs and what to do and how to have that appropriate conversation and how to reach out in a non-invasive way. But a men's study that I did through COVID, I did the Movember Men in Mind pilot training, and I think you've done it as well.
I haven't done it, but I know of it, yes.
Fantastic course, you know, but they had one of the things that they highlighted was a survey of men who were feeling suicidal. In the cases where someone had reached out and just checked that they were okay, it was reported that that was a life-saving fact for those particular guys, that one person had reached out or noticed that they weren't okay. So that's a message that I think you and I both are passionate about getting out there, you know, look out for each other.
I think the key thing is mental health first aid trainers, two words that I always focus on and say time and time again, as I'm sure you do as well, Kerry, is hope and recovery, right? You always
Yeah.
have to instill that hope. You always have to make people aware that recovery is possible, right? But I think for you to be aware of the signs and symptoms in someone else and to increase your awareness, you have to be self-aware, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So for me now, being so aware and kind of, I talk about it's like, all of us go up into our attic, right? And we kind of just, oh, that past experience, that past trauma, that past struggle, we'll just put that in the box, we'll sellotape it up, and we'll just store it away, right? Well, for me, over the last kind of 8 years, I've had to slowly, kind of go and grab each box, open the box and go, oh, what's in here, right? Deal with it. Why? Why did it make me feel like that? Why am I holding on to this? And then it's kind of like getting a skip and just chucking everything that I don't need, because then you feel more free. You actually feel more aware around, well, actually, that happened and that's actually affecting me here. So if I can deal with this, and, obviously I still see a psychologist every 6 to 8 weeks. And I think that's one of the key things. Like I spoke to a lady the other day and she had mental health issues about 15 years ago. She still sees a psychologist every 2 months
Yeah.
because she says it's a maintenance, right? Like
Yeah,
it's a
absolutely.
maintenance program.
Yep. Yep. And I love the word that you used for people going back and investigating that stuff in the past, the word slowly, because there's really a time and a place that needs to be given to that. And I encourage everyone to do that as well, because when we go through trauma and pain, it stays within us until we can release it. And if we don't release it, it will come out at times and places and in ways that we don't want it to or don't expect. So it's really important to go and seek help to slowly deal with that stuff.
And I think journaling,
Yeah,
Kerry,
absolutely.
is unlocks that, right? So, okay, I feel sad. Okay, cool. Why do I feel sad? What emotions do I feel? What thoughts am I having when I feel sad? When was the first time in my life I felt sad? Right? And writing through, and you actually start unpacking this stuff, and you can get to a point where you actually need to heal a certain part of you that is actually causing this increase in sadness. And every time something triggers you or something happens, you feel sad. So if you can go all the way back, then you can heal that part of you.
Yeah, and rewire those self-defeating beliefs. I actually wrote a journal recently called Mind Your Mind Journal, talking about all this stuff. So I'm going to send you a copy.
Okay, perfect.
What would you say to anybody out there who is struggling with burnout or who has just been through burnout?
I would say to anyone going through burnout, it's not tough to just, kind of have this armor on and just keep struggling through. I'll be okay. It'll be okay. I'll rest when I'm done. Like seriously, go and get help today. You are not alone, right? Like none of us are alone, right? Even if you've got no one in your life, there is numbers that you can call, as we know, Terry, and I
Yes.
know you put them up and I put them up as well. We've got ChatGPT now that you can talk to and say, hey, I need to talk to someone right now. And it will give you a list of numbers and contacts and resources, right? There is someone there that will take your text message, take your call right now. And I think the key thing is don't think it's got to be overwhelming. Just book an appointment with your GP and just book a long appointment so that, we talk about, some of the tips and strategies, and booking a long appointment with the doctor will allow them to do some more surveys or tests, or, really kind of get a better understanding on what you're going through so that they can help you better. And just do that first step, and then just, slowly again, do what you need to do. But I would say to them, before you started feeling really burnt out, before you started feeling depressed, before you started drinking heavily, before you started having these anxious kind of panic attacks, right? What's something that you're not doing now that you used to do that bring joy into your life, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think a lot of the time, and I've helped a lot of people, as I'm sure you have as well, Kerry, is that they actually don't become aware. And I had a gentleman, he's a great friend now, but when I met him, he's like, oh yeah, no, I started drinking and I started, not feeling great. And I was really, had suicidal ideation. And he said, oh, I just wasn't great. And I said, well, what did you used to do to bring joy into your life? And he said, oh, I used to run and I used to do CrossFit. I said, oh, okay, cool. When did you stop doing that? And it worked out. It was just before things got
Right.
bad, right?
Yeah.
But he wasn't aware of it. So he picked
No,
up
because
and he
time's looping so fast. So what?
100%. You know, like Dr. Fred Gross I did a mastermind session with him. I don't know if you've ever met Dr. Fred.
No, I haven't.
No, he's brilliant. But in our first mastermind session, he all gave us a journal and he said, I want you over the next 12 months to make a list of 500 things that bring you joy. And it was like, oh, what, 500 things? I'm not going to be able to think of 500 things.
Yeah.
But do you know what, Kerry? It wasn't about the 500. It was about making sure that we find joy in the little things as well, right? So your morning cup of coffee, it's joy, right? Some people like reading a book. Some people like doing yoga. Some people like going to the gym. Some people like walking on the beach. Some people like seeing a sunrise. Some people like seeing a sunset. Some people like going to the cinema. Some people like watching a comedy. All these different things, right? You can come up with 500. You could probably come up with 2,000 if you really
Yeah.
really understood it. So, you know, one of the key things for someone listening right now, pick up a journal, start just writing, but make a list of what are all the things that make you joy? What are all the things that are going to improve your day? And Dr. Fred used to talk about having a 10 out of 10 day. If your day's not great, what do you need to do? For me, I love sometimes when I'm not feeling great. Yeah, and it was a couple of weeks ago, I was struggling a little bit and I thought, oh, I need to do something. So I went, right, what do I need to do to bring me joy today? Cool, I'm going to go and do wellness and well-being. I went and got a haircut and when I got a massage. Do you think that afternoon I felt better?
Oh, yeah. That's
100%.
great.
100%. So like the brain wants us to think sometimes, oh, you know, and I talk about this with depression, right, Kerry? And I talk about this in the mental health first aid course as well. My experience and my reflection and awareness on it is that going through the depths of depression, the brain says to you in the morning, no, don't get up and go to the gym. Lay in for another hour, hour and a half. No, don't get up and have a shower. You know, don't eat a nutritional breakfast. Don't connect with anyone. Don't exercise. Don't all these things, right? But what I worked out is that if you do get up, you do have a shower, you do go to the gym, you do eat well, and you have human connection, it changes your whole morning. But the brain,
Yeah.
you talked about earlier about power, right?
Yeah.
And empowering people. Everyone has the power. We have the power. Our brain doesn't have our power. Our body doesn't have our power. We have the power to take control of our life and improve our mood and improve our circumstances right now.
Great stuff. When you were talking, I was thinking, we were talking about finding joy in the day. Something that I always say is that not every day will be perfect, but we can find perfect moments in every day. And what you're talking about is the search for gratitude, about the things that bring joy. And when we do find gratitude, it actually releases endorphins into our body, which make us feel good. So there's a little tip for everyone out there.
And that's the key. That's the key thing is as
That's
well,
right.
right? Like gratitude is a big thing,
Yeah.
but also, you know, it's like the thing. Can you ever be angry hugging someone, right? Can you ever be angry dancing?
Yeah.
Like next time you're angry, start dancing. Right?
Well, I started that in COVID and I dance for 10 minutes every single morning for the last 4 years. And I feel so happy, despite how I feel when I get out of bed. When I start dancing, I feel really happy after that. And that's a great way to start the day.
Yeah. And I used to sing in the shower. Now I dance in the shower, right?
Right.
Like I put some good music on and you think about it, it's a great way of starting your day, right?
Yeah. We might have created a revolution of dancers out there, Steve. If you're listening to this and you start dancing, send me a message.
Yeah, sounds good.
I love it. Steve, so as we come to a close now, what's your message for the world?
You're not alone. Wherever you are right now, you're not alone. You know, reach out, message Kerry, message myself. There are so many people out there that will give you their time. You know, there are so many people out there, and it's a growing thing that there's so many people out there that are just there to serve and they just want to make your day better. But I also think, you know, for those listening, just never underestimate the power that you have to make someone else's day. If one person in the world, every single person in the world just made one other person's day better, how different would the world be?
Oh, yeah, you're speaking my stuff.
That gave me goosebumps.
I know. I'm all about this, I talk about it's all about the ones. And yeah, exactly. I love that so much. Steve, how can people contact you?
Instagram and LinkedIn are probably the best, at the Steve Hodgson. LinkedIn is as well as the Steve Hodgson.
Yep.
Jump on and you'll be able to get some other links and stuff like that. Obviously, I've got the podcast as well, which has just been rebranded. So yeah, and they can jump on and listen to the episode where I interviewed you, Kerry.
Yeah, I know. Is that under the rebranding or the old?
It's still I've rebranded the podcast, but everything's Share Podcast, which was the old branding. Right. It's all under the same account, so it's not a new account. So people will be able to find you by scrolling down a little bit, because I think you're maybe about 5 or 6 episodes ago.
Oh, that's great. Well, Steve, it's been an absolute delight and so much gold in there today. And you're an awesome human, and anybody that reaches out to Steve will not be disappointed. You'll be really blessed. And thank you, Steve.
No, I'm grateful for the opportunity. And, it's just great that through collaboration like this, we can spread more awareness and we can help more people. And always love having a great chat. And we'll have to catch up for a dance one day, Kerry.
Yeah, that'd be great. Together is better. Don't do life alone. Thanks.
Love it. Thanks, Kerry.
Thank you for listening to Stories of Hope with Kerry Atherton. If this conversation helped you, please consider sharing the podcast with a friend or leaving a rating and review on your podcast player. If you'd like to find out more about Kerry Atherton, head to storiesofhope.com.au, where you can purchase her books or find her next event. Check the show notes for links and information about our guest in this episode. And remember, you don't have to walk your path alone.